Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Mile a Minute Movie Talk. Your host, Lucas of Ligure Films, and
Hello.
myself, Dylan, Diligent Picks. Hope everybody's having a great time. It's the nearing the end of May, and lots of
Memorial Weekend.
yeah, that's true. And with that, we're nearing the summer blockbuster, I guess, breakout. We're gonna get a lot of stuff coming soon. Um, I guess Disney's going to try to hit it out of the park this week with the Little Mermaid live action, which
It's getting the best reviews out of any of the live actions, which is not that great. It's like sixes on
right.
everything. Six on like Rotten Tomato, and then like or 60, should I say, and then like IMDb.
Yeah. To be
It's
fair,
there.
I really wasn't expecting much better, based on their track
hmm
record of as you just outlaid. But
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Lucas and I had a light week this week. We enjoyed watching some films together. We had a nice little movie night with our buddy Aaron. Shout out to Aaron.
Yes. Shout out.
We will talk about those films coming up, some throwbacks, and we will talk about. Actually, do you want to start with those films and then lead into some news?
Yeah, we'll probably start with those films. Yeah.
So, tell me about. Actually, let's start with the more familiar one, I think. So,
Yeah.
a little known remake came out past week on Hulu called White Men Can't Jump. We did not
Yes.
watch that film. However, we did watch.
No. Why would we?
However, we did watch the basketball classic comedy from 1992, White Man Can't Jump,
Yes, the good
which
original
I
one.
had personally never seen before.
Yeah, I don't think I had seen it in a long time. I don't remember much of it, if I even watched the whole thing last time.
But it's always been one of those movies I've always wanted to see. I mean, I've always enjoyed Woody Harrelson for the most part. I haven't seen everything from Wesley Snipes. I mean, I grew up watching Blade and Blade. Well, I guess the trilogy. Um,
hmm
but yeah, it was definitely a very interesting. More, I was actually surprised how adult of a comedy it was.
Yeah. I felt like it was. Since I watched it mostly when I was young, I felt like it was more of a like maybe PG-13, light R, but it was very much more harder R than I thought.
Yes, yeah. There's definitely a lot of fun, sexy moments with Wesley Snipes and his lady friend, as well as Woody Harrelson and Rosie Perez. Get some nice, fun,
Yeah.
romantic scenes, and there's definitely. I guess the content of the movie itself, like the plot, there isn't like a lot of drama in that regard that would warrant like a hard. There's not like blood or anything like that, but there's definitely more.
Yeah.
It's more of
Yeah.
the
Nudity and
yeah,
language, a lot
yeah,
of language.
exactly. And speaking of the language, it's very interesting going back to a time. This is right after I was born, so 1992, within a year, and it feels very 90s, but in a good way. I didn't feel like it was dated in
hmm
a bad way. I'm sure some of the jokes haven't aged as well as they could have in some respects, but there's definitely a lot that holds up about this movie. I was pleasantly surprised. Um, I think there's a few parts where you feel like they could have cut it short maybe a little bit. It feels like maybe it's 15 minutes too
Yeah,
long.
it felt like it could have been a 140, 90-minute movie, and then it kind of like went longer than that. The third act definitely was like a little bit longer than it should have been. The story was definitely weird in like the third act as well compared to the rest of the story, but I still definitely
Yeah,
good.
it sort of feels like the closest thing to me to like a slice of life movie. Just like comparing to like an anime genre. Like it felt like we were just kind of watching, two people live their lives, do their thing, and just kind of some nice little moments here and there of what they're going
Mm,
through. And but there was some things about it that definitely surprised me. I was really into the way they depicted Rosie Perez's character. I really enjoyed her. Like she has a lot of nice little like nuggets of wisdom that she gives to Woody Harrelson. Um,
yeah,
like one being this really funny scene where like they're waking up in bed and she tells him she's thirsty, and she doesn't ask him to go get her a glass of water, but he just decides to, as
Yeah.
one might choose to do that. But then she goes on this whole like thing and says, like, hey, just because I told you I'm thirsty doesn't mean I want you to get up and get me a glass of water. That like,
Yeah.
it's not a man's job to solve a woman's problems. It's just this funny like a lot like I guess now from my experience in relationships, like I've learned a lot, and so it's really funny to see like, okay, like this is for this time, this is a very well written like female character. They have a great like moment later on when she's like talking about who winning and losing. They're
Mhm.
like, sometimes when you win, you actually lose. Sometimes when you lose, you actually
Yeah.
win, etc. etc. And but just explaining how at the end of the day, it gets you to where you need to be. That's just how life
Yeah.
works. And like a lot, pretty much everything she said is legitimately true. It's played for comedic effect, like because Woody Harrelson's not supposed to get
Mhm.
it. He's just that sort of.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it is like everything she's saying has a point. So I was very surprised in the writing a lot of the time, and I did think it was
Mhm.
really funny. It's not one of those movies that you're laughing out loud consistently, like really loud throughout the movie, but there are some really good
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah, it was. Oh, sorry. It has like some of the best banter between
Mm.
characters that you like can have. It just like the character dynamic between Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes' character is just so great in how they talk to each other, and like it's such a well written
Mm.
dialogue movie. Like the way that people interact and talk to each other are like so great that it definitely just ingress it. If all, it doesn't, it's not really there in the third act, so that's why kind of third act kind of drags along. Is because there's not like that witty banter the whole time. And it's just so funny. All these characters are just talking crap to each other, and it's hilarious. And then it kind of gets more serious, and it goes on like a weird like characters' aspirations journey in the third act, and them getting to those. That kind of makes it weird, but that's kind of like the only down point of the
Yeah.
movie, really. Whereas like all the first and second act are definitely like the best parts, just with how they just the interactions and how much they talk crap. I don't want to say any of it because it's so great to watch. Like if you haven't seen it for the first time, just like all these things that they say. Some of them are like even things that people say nowadays. There's a lot that like might have first occurred in this movie, which is like so
Hmm.
fun. But yeah, story definitely doesn't take the trajectory that you think it will, with like everything. It's kind of hyping up that this big tournament's going to happen, but that happens in like the second act, and then kind of like the third act is the ramifications and the aftermath of that tournament and what happened after it between the characters. And it's kind of like this tug and pull, but it feels like some of the the supporting cast didn't need as much time as
Mm.
they should have. In my opinion, I feel like Rosie's character, I mean, she's good and all, but like I felt like if it focused more on the basketball and the two main characters going back and forth, I felt like that's like the big draw to the movie, and that's the best part of the movie. But it's still not bad in the way it
Yeah,
is.
I think it was interesting how they decided to do that. It does at one point it feels like it's going to have that sort of cliche like fallout moment between the two main characters, and then they're going to make up and you know um, make things work. But then it
Yeah.
doesn't quite go that route. I mean, yes, they do continue to do their hustle game, but
Mhm.
um, yeah, the choice to do this like long, not long, but this like tournament moment, and it's definitely it's a product of its time because there's these long shots where they're like playing basketball, and there's like these really slow motion scenes of like actual basketball in motion, and some of those
Mhm.
shots like it feels too montagey. It kind of they go on a little too long because they're very slow motion. Like it was like a.
Yeah, it's not shot like a sporting event. It's more shot like a very 90s hype
Hmm.
tape for like a
Yeah.
basketball. Like it looks like a lot of those like player driven movies, not necessarily, they're not like fiction, just like about the players, where they have all like these cool action shots and stuff like that. It's like the cross quad the cross cut, like quick, like kind of blurry, like low frame rate, and then cut to like a slow mo, and like it's just kind of how like they portrayed like sports in the 90s, and it's very much falls into that trope like they did in like other movies that aren't good sports segments in movies. Like The Fan does it a lot, and like just a lot of things from that period that were sports movies. Really, the the ones that aren't memorable for their sports things do this, and it's just kind of like the easiest way that they can show the action in a way. But there's some great like one takes and like long shots that they do, and those are like the best shots. You're like, oh,
Mm.
this is really good, and then they go to like this higher like lower frame, or not lower frame, but tighter frame of these shots of these guys dribbling the ball and like kind of slowing it down, speeding it up and all that, and it's kind of like, okay, well, this isn't as interesting
Yeah,
as
yeah, exactly.
this.
There are definitely some much more like impressive shots earlier in the film where they're just where they just start this hustle game and they're playing some guys, and then some of those moments are really the best comedic moments too. I think one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
scenes is when they they're trying to where they first trying to play off that Woody Harrelson is like this, just this nerd doesn't know how to play ball guy, and
Mm-hmm.
they try to hustle like this bigger dude who is like he sort of figures it out at some point during the game once they lose because he realizes how good they both are and that they actually know each other and work together, and he realizes that he's being
Mm-hmm.
hustled, and then he starts to get really mad, and he's like he just basically is like, I'm gonna go get my gun, and then this is this great moment where everyone just like
Yeah,
runs for the hills.
yeah. That the first hustle
Yeah.
was a great one.
um I also I enjoyed, yeah, like some of the scenes like they did a good job of kind of like referencing certain characters and bringing back silly things like how Rosie Perez, she just has like an abundance of knowledge from reading and like doing all these different things to like learn about all this stuff that she would never need to know, like just a bunch of useless information up until she gets a chance to go on Jeopardy. And the fact that they actually had a
Mm-hmm.
Jeopardy scene with Alex Trebek, rest in peace.
Yeah, there's definitely what's his name, the director, Ron Shelton,
Hmm.
definitely after his big movie Bull Durham, he definitely had like some more pull in like
Oh,
the popularity of things. So I think this is his first movie right after Bull
okay.
Durham. If I'm
I
right,
didn't
yeah, I
realize
think
yeah, I
so.
didn't realize he
And
directed Bull Durham. I like that one.
yeah, yeah, he did Bull Durham. Yeah, this he did, yeah, his 3 run was Bull Durham, White Men Can't Jump, and then Cobb, and then he kind of like took a break a little bit after Cobb doing like some weird action movies. But um oh wow, this is weird. Sorry. He did a movie called The Great White Hype, and it was a boxing movie with what's his name? Where are they? There they are. Samuel L. Jackson, Jeff Goldblum, and Jamie Foxx as the
Oh, okay.
boxer, but did not do good. And that's when he stopped doing those. He did write
Oh,
Bad Boys
wow,
2
okay.
though. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely feels like he had like a strong run of a couple like good sports movies. I feel like
Yeah.
that's his realm of like, because I remember watching like the special features on Bull Durham Criterion, and he like talks about how he like played baseball in the minor leagues, and so like that like aspect of actually being a professional athlete probably definitely helps him in like writing how these players interact with each other and such. And so same thing with like the street ball. I He just is really good at writing that just because he knows how like people actually talk to each other in a sports setting. So I think that that's like really like the strong suit of that. And then like the comedic parts are like so great. It just definitely comes out like more out of
Hmm.
nowhere. Um, like they're just very riffing too. They don't give you like time to like, it doesn't feel like a comedic setup in a lot of things. They just like go through it. Like the talking about that scene from earlier when the guy
Yeah.
with the gun, he goes to before that he's like, I got $800 in my car, and he goes,
Oh.
grabs his gun and ski mask and goes to rob the gun store or a local liquor store. But the liquor store guy's like, I know it's you, and he's like, I'll give you. The guy's like, oh, I'll sell you this gun. It's really good. You don't know how crazy it
Yeah.
is on these streets. And he's like, okay, I'll give you. He was like, I'll sell it to you for 300. He's like, I'll give you 250. He's like, motherfucker, you robbing me.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like super funny. And then in that scene that you're talking about, where he's like, I'm gonna go get my other
Yeah,
gun.
yeah, that's right. That's
It's like
right.
super
Yeah. I
funny.
forgot that that was actually a build-up
Yeah, they
joke.
all
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah. It's just like it's everything just flows really. The ebbs and flows of the comedy are really non-forced and just they work out real great. The whole setup for the hitman too, like they show him like this is the work that we do, and then they go cut to him paying off the hitman, and then they show him dead on the rocks. You're like, oh wow, they killed him. That's so weird. And then they're like, are the shots done? He's like, good. And it was just them showing how they can like
Oh yeah,
fake deaths for the people that they're
yeah,
contracted to work with.
yeah. That was good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The supporting cast is really strong in the movie too. There's a lot of like '90s
Mm,
actors, that are friends with Woody Harrel or Wesley Snipes, like Kadeem Harris Hardison. He's the one guy name I knew. I was like, oh, I've seen him in a bunch of movies. He was in Sixth Man, which is a bad basketball movie, and he was in a bunch of other ones called like Drive and stuff like that. Just weird '90s comedies movies, but they're like
yeah,
fun. But like, yeah, there's a lot of just a strong
yeah.
supporting
And I just
cast.
I definitely agree. Like I feel like the comedic elements felt very authentic and improvised. Like I didn't feel like I was watching like
Hmm.
I wasn't like anytime there was a joke, I didn't feel like I was like I was like listen I was hearing like a writer trying to like make me laugh. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was really just
Yeah,
watching because I think from my experience actually being on the pickup, playing a lot of pickup basketball, especially after high school and things like that. Like I've seen
yeah,
a lot of that, maybe not to that degree of like the
yeah.
comedy, but still that there is people riff on each other and there's trash talk and all that. So yeah, there was some
Mhm.
definitely some level of relatability for me, or just in general. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I feel like that's definitely where this film comes from. It's definitely like a timepiece of that era of the early '90s too, with how they dress. Not really how they talk. I feel like, I mean, a little bit how they talk, but it's just like it still hits today, and it's like
yeah,
so funny, and it's aged like
yeah,
perfectly, and that's such a fun. I mean, obviously the best part of it. I keep talking about it, but it definitely isn't like painfully like outdated. It's like
mm,
perfect encapsulation of like that pre like early Jordan era of like how people like saw basketball, the late Lakers dynasty, and just kind of like going off that, and then just like how they dress and how they play is very much part of that era, and like, oh, really much like that Jordan era style, and so it's like pretty good. I that was like the it was very accurate in like how it depicts everything, and that was the really
yeah.
nice part.
I definitely agree, and I think there's a lot of people I know that. Okay, not a lot, but there's a few people I know that have never even heard of
Mhm.
it and never seen it. I'm just like, okay, you should check
Oh
it out.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. I definitely, it's definitely one of the better basketball
Mm-hmm.
movies. I would say like one of the best
Yeah.
rated R ones. Because a lot of them are like family movies, but like out of like them, I definitely like it more than like some of the
Mm.
classic ones that like dominate just because they're kind
Mm.
of corny. Where this one doesn't feel corny; it feels very
Yeah.
realistic. And it's not that like underdog story. It's just like, hey, we're both really good at basketball. I went to college and played basketball, but nobody knows me out here, so
Yeah.
I can get away with it. And it's like it's very much not non-traditional sports story that definitely keeps you and draws you in because it's like, oh, this is somewhat realistic, or also it just feels like believable characters and they're so charismatic. Like two great actors of the
Yeah.
'90s and 2000s. Um, and them playing off of each other so well. Like this is the height of like the beginning of Wesley
Yeah.
Snipes' reign, and so that's like the best part of it. It's like '92, and then he gets Blade in the late '90s, but he's doing all these crazy sports movies as well and action movies in the mid '90s, and it's like it's a great like beginning to like kind of like his
Yeah.
era.
I think like I don't have any desire to watch the remake, and I don't really like I haven't heard many good
Yeah,
things, but I would definitely suggest people give this one a shot. Um, just it's
yeah, definitely. If you like sports movies, it's
Yeah,
just one
I
of the
think
better ones.
especially as far as basketball films, I say it's easily probably like in the top 10, maybe top 15.
Yeah. Yeah, top 10 definitely. I yeah, I could say like top 5, top
Wow, yeah,
7
okay.
possibly. Just like I feel like basketball movies you think there's a lot more than
Yeah,
there are.
yeah.
Cuz like you think of like oh, football and baseball. There's not as many basketball movies just because basketball wasn't that big of a sport up until the Jordan
Mm,
era. It was like kind of struggling in the 70s and started gaining a little bit of momentum in the Bad Boys era and the 80s and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, we're like the third biggest, we're like right with hockey in America. And then gets really big in the
mm.
Showtime Lakers era. which definitely kind of like propels it, which is like I think early 80s. And so they didn't really have that time to like build up like the classic baseball movies and stuff like that. It definitely goes into um kind of like this era where there's not that many going on. And so the classic era of just like good basketball movies is very much the 90s and then early 2000s a little bit too. There's some.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we transitioned things very interesting after that film. When we
Mhm.
proceeded in our movie night, we decided to watch.
Yeah. You should do a breakdown of how we choose
Oh
our movie
yeah,
nights.
maybe I should. Okay.
So this is I can describe it as an outsider so that everybody gets the same gist as I did. Essentially, how we do it is what everybody brings a bunch of movies or picks movies. You have all of the people. We had three people this time, so we all picked a movie that we wanted to watch, and then we picked a random number with a random number generator, just asking Siri, and Aaron got picked. So Aaron picked White Man Can't Jump, and then we both picked movies that try to pair with that, either thematically or kind of like story wise. So it was like trying to go with like sports comedies, or you could go with just a normal comedy. And so that's what we did. And so then the person who picks the first movie gets to then pick from the choices of the other people for the second
Yeah,
movie.
and this is actually the first time I had tried doing it this way. I think one of the things I love about movie nights is just, well, I also hate about movie nights is having to decide on the movie. It can take a really long time. Um, and
Exactly. Yeah.
it's like when it's like the equivalent of browsing Netflix and not deciding what to watch, right? So
Hmm.
I've tried to figure out different ways to make that go faster and smoother, and this I think can work. Although it did sort of backfire because I had a really difficult time trying to think of a movie to go with White Man Can't Jump, which is why the movie that
Yeah.
I selected to watch did not get picked. The movie I was actually pairing with White Man Can't Jump was Paper Tigers, which is an action comedy with martial arts.
Yeah.
And the movie that did get picked was Lucas's film, which I will now let him talk to you about because he had seen it before, and I want to know the story about
Yeah.
how he discovered it and why we watched it.
Um, I don't remember how I discovered it. I do not for the life of me. I remember now. Okay, I thought about it. So there was me and my friend Seamus. We would go to the video store. So we would go back to Video Droid. This was like 2017, 2018. And I picked out this weird Japanese movie. And this guy was like, oh, there's this really good movie. We don't have it, but it's super weird and kind of like this movie. I can't remember what the movie I picked was. Oh, my mic just fell. My mic just fell. Ah. But let me get this back on and continue my rant.
Do 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 do.
There,
Ranting. There we go.
there we go. Okay. So I forget the movie that we picked out, but he was like, "Oh yeah, this movie is very much like that," and he was like, "We don't have it," and he couldn't remember the name of it. He was like, "It's something 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 plus or a number then plus," and so this was at Video Droid, and then we went home and we looked it up and we found it and it was on YouTube, and so I bought the DVD on Amazon for like $5, and because that was all there is, and then we found it on YouTube. It's like, "Oh, we'll just watch this." And then we watched it, and it was so dumb and hilarious. It's essentially five different stories that don't have any coherence as to why they're being presented at the same time, and they all kind of like go together, but they all have like really weird comedic things about them. Like one of them is about like home robbers who two of them have like a gay relationship growing that they don't know if they like the other one's gay or not, and they like are trying to figure out if the other one wants to date them. Then you have like a dad and his kids who win a tickets to a hypnotic show, a hypnotist show, and the hypnotist is another character who has a relationship with a ad writer, and they like don't like each other because they keep spreading rumors about each other, and so that's like a dynamic. And then the main one is Tadanobu Asano.
Ichi the Killer.
Yes, Ichi the Killer. He's in a million different things, Mortal Kombat, like anything that is American, Hollywood made and is Japanese in like the last 15, 20 years probably has Tadanobu Asano in it. And you know his face if you look him up. But yeah, he has like this weird, like comedic Evil Dead kind of thing going where he keeps killing his wife and she keeps coming back as like a different themed person trying to kill him and different powers each time. It's just so weird. And so yeah, you kind of start off with this kind of like grim thing where Tadanobu Asano is talking to you, and Asano's talking about like, have you ever killed your wife? Have you ever killed one that you love? And he's like super grim, burying the city. What the fuck is this movie? And then he goes home, drives home in like his old wagon, has like some cool like almost Evil Dead like car driving through the forest shots. Goes home, goes to drink some milk. He looks over at the table and his wife's back there just sitting there, and he just spits out his milk, and then the intro sequence starts, and then it just goes from there. Um, my favorite sequence is the character that is Vinnie Jones. Um, if you've ever seen a Guy Ritchie film. Vinnie Jones is in Lock, Stock, Smoky Barrel, and Snatch, I think. He's a former soccer player that became an actor because Vinnie Jones was like an enforcer in soccer and kind of an asshole, and so he kind of became this enforcer asshole guy in movies because Guy Ritchie's was like, oh, he's perfect. I know him from his playing days, and so that's how he kind of got his career started. And he's this British assassin hired by a Japanese assassin because somebody wanted some more flavor in their hit job and they wanted to get like a cool foreign assassin. And so that's who he hired. And he has a scene where he's yelling at this flight attendant and like cussing her out and calling her like all these names. And the Japanese assassin is like his translator for the whole trip. So he has to translate all of the things he's saying to this woman. And it's
Yeah, I
super
love
funny.
that. That that it's hard to decide what my favorite sequence is, but that one was definitely like the
Yeah.
first one I latched onto
Yeah.
because I recognize that actor, but also just the way he delivers
Hmm.
that specific line, which if I recall is something like, "What is your purpose in life?" Right? Or
Yeah, yeah, that's like his whole thing is that he asks people what their purpose in life is, and then he either kills them after because they're the hit job he has to do, or he
oh
just
oh no,
asks
it's
them
what
to
is your
like help
function
them.
in life, right?
Oh yeah, what's your function?
And yeah, he has that great accent and
Yeah,
that like kind of really creepy like
yeah,
facial expression when he asks it. So you're
hmm,
like, what?
yeah,
But
yeah. This movie is very a movie of scenes because it's a film about. It's film made by commercial directors in Japan who make like iconic like Boss. Some of them worked on like the iconic Tommy Lee Jones Boss commercials, and like other ones like the Ab one. I think one of them wrote some of that, where the guy keeps falling into
oh
like the
yeah,
Ab machine. You'd know them if you've seen them. And they couple of them, I think three or four of them came together. One of them directed it, but they all came together on the script and they just wrote scenes that were funny. So there's a lot. One of them is a commercial lady, the one that's sleeping with the um, what's his what do they call it? I just said the
the
word earlier
hypnotist.
and I can't remember it now. Hypnotist, thank you. She's sleeping with the hypnotist, and she's like a commercial pitcher, and so there's all these weird things where you get a visualization of the commercial she's thinking of, and they're all like pretty funny. There's one where the dude has a headache and he has to go to a music audition or an acting audition, and he has to headbang, and he's like freaking breaking down because he's like has such a bad headache. Just like all these like little vignettes that they just throw in. They say, "Oh, there's this sequence, there's this sequence, this sequence." And they just lead into the next one until they kind of all connect them, and that's essentially the movie. And it's just like a fun comedy, like almost a sketch comedy, but all the sketches are in the same universe, and there's like different ones
It's
in the same
definitely in the
universe.
vein of like one, if you really like Japanese humor, like you really get it. Like it's a lot
Mm,
of really
yeah,
cultural humor, and there's like yeah, those ad scenes are really just they add a certain level of charm to the film where if people like an
yeah,
international audience like us, we don't see a lot of this in America. So like when we come across it, there's either two ways of viewing it. It's either way too weird for you and you don't get it and you're turned off by it, or it's really
yeah,
weird to you and you do get it and you're like really into it because it's so different and charming and bizarrely enjoyable. Like it's one of those like
yeah.
things like we were discussing while watching the film, the three of us. I think Aaron pointed out how, even the fact that we were watching on DVD sort of added to the charm of the movie. Yeah.
Exactly. It really feels like a movie you would have ran into at a random video store, like I did. Like walking, like, oh, this looks so weird. It has like a really interesting cover, and but yeah, it's funny too because a lot of the um a lot of the characters are like really funny in what they do, but they're all like some of them have like a more bigger dynamic, some of them just have a one thing. Like Hiroshi Abe, he was in like a
Mhm.
he's the hypnotist. Amon, and like he has that whole really weird sequence where he has his intro and it's like this story about a bunny rabbit is his intro, Like remember that when like when he walks out and it's like that guy in a bunny suit hopping around and there's all
Oh
the women
yeah.
around him, and it there's like the weirdest songs and like all the songs are original and produced for this by the guy who did the soundtrack for Redline and like some British musician,
Red
which
Line
is
the
really funny.
anime.
But yeah, Redline the anime, yeah. And Hiroshi Abi's character is just this hypnotist who's just like horny the whole time, and it's hilarious. The Vinnie Jones comes out and is like, what's your function?" And he's like, "To make women come." And then he's like, just looks at him like hella weird, like what the fuck? And he's like, "Ha." And then I forget what he says, but it was pretty funny. But yeah, he his character is like this just one dimensional. He's just like super funny, and then he just dies. But it's like super. It's just like you have characters like that are
Yeah,
pretty funny.
and then
Um, Tanada Nasuano doesn't talk that much, and he's super
well, and
funny. It's
then
just like
that whole
yeah,
storyline transitions to where there's like this dad and this family and these two
mm-hmm.
daughters, and the dad he gets hypnotized into thinking he's a bird, and
Yes. And then when that happens, Vinnie Jones comes out and kills the hypnotist. And then the dad's stuck as a bird, and that's
yeah,
becomes that storyline.
it becomes
Um,
just this really funny, like I won't spoil anything, but like you know like the idea of like is he actually a bird, you know, or is he just does he just think
yeah,
he's a bird, and they just keep he
yeah.
just makes this really funny sound that's just like poke poke poke.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
does like a chicken sound, and
it's so
it's
dumb, but
so
it's
dumb.
so
But
funny.
it's like that's like him for the rest of the movie, and it's funny. Like if you look into like some of these actors, like they were like big or they were like up and coming in Japan, and they all just started doing these weird. They just all did this weird movie, and I think it was a movement in Japan right around post like 2000, right around before and after. It was like this surrealist comedy era, and me and my friend got really into it after watching this movie. We started looking up other ones. They're all like these kind of serious stories or just really weird comedies. And it was like this era that all had like these kind of they'd have a big eclectic cast, and they would have this weird surrealist comedy going on where it was like all these people put in a situation for a certain reason. And there are two other ones I know what we watched during this were Party Seven, Shark Skin Man, and Peach Hip Girl. Another one's called Dangan Runner, where it's a
I've heard of that
that one
one.
is great. I would recommend that one. Dangan Runner is a movie about a dude who like robs a bank but fails. Oh no, he tries to rob a convenience store but fails because he tries to rob the bank and he forgot like something, so he has to go next door to the convenience store. And then the guy at the convenience store sees him with a gun. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna get you!" And so he starts chasing him. And then the convenience store guy was like, owed money to another guy, and so that guy's like, "Hey, I see you, and you owe me money." And so they
Oh,
all three are chasing each
oh
other,
my
and that's
god,
the whole movie. It's all these just really weird surrealist comedies that were coming out right around the same time, and it's such a funny era of like Japanese comedies. And if you aren't into that kind of style of like really just like absurd, like
wacky,
life's weird, life's crazy, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah, just wacky off the walls, not necessarily like transcendence of like our reality, but like sitting our reality, but just making fun of like everyday life. And if you aren't really into that like style mixed with like Japanese humor, you won't like any of these eras comedies. But these comedies, if you do, are just all great. Like all of them just run really well. Party Seven's kind of like hit or miss, but Peach Up Girl also has Tanobu Asano. But like Danganronpa, all these ones are super funny. They're harder to. Some of them are harder to find. Most of them are available just on DVD in America, or through Terracotta Films if you're in Europe. But if you, or no, Third Window Films if you're in Europe. But if you don't have, but if you have a VPN, you can just rent from Third Window Films on Vimeo, which is what I do and how I watched a lot of these. So that's what I did. But there's one more too called Welcome Back, Mr. McDonald, kind of the same era. That one we're gonna watch one day. But yeah, it's just I definitely really came into these films when I was in why did my TV turn on? I really got into these films like right in early college, and so like it's like a era of films that I'm really like particular to because I watched all these a lot with my friend who was the one that was with me when we found out about Survive Stall 5
nice,
50.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's like I'm really into this film just because I've watched it probably 6 times, and then also I'm trying to get to my controller and I'm plugged in. Give me one second.
Lucas will be back in a moment as he is looking for his controller for a certain purpose, and I will
My TV randomly turned on. I don't know why. I thought it was trying to
Ah,
turn off because it was like making background noise. Okay, I'm back. But yeah, yeah, it just really was a fun thing. It's very like kind of nostalgic to that era of.
and he is adjusting his mic.
There we go. Really nostalgic for me for that era of kind of like a lot of downtime, and just watching movies, not knowing where I want to do with life, and definitely helped me like fall in love with getting into film and working in film and broadcasting. And so definitely like recommend a lot of these if you're just into kill time but okay with watching subtitles. They're just fun, crazy
Yeah, you can't
comedies.
go wrong with it. If you just enjoy discovering new film and new genre and things that are different, that's definitely something to
Hmm.
look for. Uh,
Yeah, there's definitely it's definitely like cool to explore those like certain time periods of certain film industries, subgenres, and like this is definitely one of them. And I definitely fell in love with it as like a film in general. If you like love exposure, that's kind of like the pinnacle of like this style of comedy. That's by Sion Sono. He's like very much like in this style vein of these in his comedy films, just like absurd, surreal comedies. Definitely, if you like his stuff, you'd like this. But yeah, like in general, definitely fun. I definitely fell in love with this film, obviously, as you can tell when I watched it, and I watched it a lot. Probably my sixth time seeing it. I don't know if I already said that though, but yeah, I like showing it to people. I don't know if Dylan and Aaron liked it as much. I don't think they liked it as much, but I think they liked it.
yeah,
Is my
I know.
kind of
I
like
think we.
takeaway. It has its ebbs and flows as a film. It kind of like slows down at the end before the climax, and then there's like certain periods where it's not like a lot going on. You're kind of just watching a lot of people do stuff in
Hmm.
silence, and you can kind of like it's kind of
No, I think we both
interesting then.
definitely enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I think it's one of those movies that you know you're not really gonna forget anytime soon. I always appreciate that when a movie is
Hmm.
memorable, because there's a lot of stuff
Hmm.
out there that's just completely forgettable. And to me, it always
Yeah.
comes down to the experience. Like I'm gonna remember that experience with you guys, and if I'd seen it by myself, maybe I don't know. It might.
Yeah. It's definitely a movie you have to
Yeah,
kind of watch with someone so that you
yeah,
have someone to
exactly.
talk about it with. I do have an extra copy if you want it, Dylan, or anyone in the crowd wants it. Because when our video store closed, I took our
It's a low
copy,
key
so I have it.
giveaway.
Low key giveaway. Comment down below if you want the Survive Style 5 Plus
Oh.
DVD. But yeah, definitely a movie to watch with your friends. Just hanging out and just crazy, just just dumb fun. It's very much like the Japanese version this era of like the kind of like stoner films. Not really stoner films, but like kind of like the super bad era
Yeah,
maybe.
I can see that.
Uh just like the fun with popular names, comedies, but very different styles of comedy. One of them is definitely more commercialized and for the populace and like the American kind of like stoner comedies, but like this one was very much like kind of more niche, but like still pretty popular. At least
Yeah.
some of these films.
Well, Lucas and I are going to aim for a shorter episode tonight, especially with my battery stuck at
Yes.
10%. So we are going to go as long as we can go until I have to say no more.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up what I was saying. If there's anything else you
No,
wanted
I
to say about
think
it.
I think you summed it up for now. It's definitely one of those movies I like still have to think about and sit on. Like I still
Yeah,
haven't fully
it's
processed it.
definitely one that you like. You'll like want to rewatch it with someone else, and then you'll put it on. And you'll be like, "See, oh, I see more stuff
Yeah.
going on now," and like it's just one that scenes and sequences stick with you, and you just remember
Yeah.
them throughout the day. Like you'll just be like, "What is your function?" Or just like you'll just remember like one of the commercials
Yeah.
that she imagines, and it's just like
Yeah,
funny.
I do think it's one that I want to see again someday to like to catch what I missed and to
Yeah,
understand it more.
maybe I'll try to start a studio and buy the rights to it, so it gets a
Yeah.
Blu-ray release at least.
Well, we have some
uh,
other small topics we can share with everyone. Um,
yeah. So in news this week in film, all I really saw, I mean, obviously we have movies coming out that we kind of already touched on, like Little Mermaid and such. One we were gonna see, but we aren't, but we might see next week is
Mm,
Master Gardener, which is the third film in the Paul Schrader Man in the Room trilogy, is what he calls it. Interesting. But for outside of like release wise, for theatricals, I know we had the new trailer for Mission Impossible
Dead
drop.
Reckoning Part 1.
Um, about what you expect. Yes, Dead Reckoning Part One. About what you expect, but really good
Definitely
in
big
that
on our both of our watch
expectation.
lists.
Yeah, definitely gonna try to see that opening week. Um, I didn't really watch any of the Mission Impossibles up until what's it called? End
The
last one.
last one was Fallout.
Fallout, thank you. I didn't really watch any of them until Fallout, honestly. And then I watched Fallout and I was like, "Whoa, it's freaking good!"
Nice.
And then I watched all of them. I think I saw one on VHS when I was a kid. My mom really liked Emilio Estevez, and that's why she got it. And then he died immediately, and she
Aw.
was sad. She was like, "What the fuck?" But yeah, outside of that, yeah, there's I don't think we had any other big trailers. Looking at like the trending trailers when I was looking at them, uh, there aren't really any like big ones. I mean, we have a million Flash ones coming out right
Yeah.
now.
I think yeah, the Little Mermaid, Master and Gardener. There's also that The Machine with that comedian Bert. I can't Bert Kreischer
Oh yeah, thank you.
and
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
Mark Hamill of all people is in
Yeah,
that as well. So that could be funny.
yeah.
um, I know
Hmm.
this week on streaming we got John Wick Chapter 4 is now available to buy. Blu-ray
Hmm.
releases we got Shazam, the sequel. We got Creed 3. And we got The Running Man all on 4K. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes. I got Brotherhood of the Wolf on 4K. My another weird thing I get into is I'm really into Mark Dacascos movies, and I've seen like half of them. Very underrated, and a guy who just missed out on being like one of the biggest '90s action stars. Mark Dacascos just had a bunch of bad breaks, and he's in this movie as a character, and it's pretty good. It got a 4K re-release with the or 4K remaster with the director's cut as well, so it's like 2.5 hours, and it seems pretty good. It's directed by Christoph Gans, the guy who did like
Ooh.
Silent Hill. So I'm gonna be excited. Missed seeing it at Alamo Draft House, so instead I will be seeing
Well,
it at
speaking of
home.
what we might watch this week, if anyone wants to watch with us,
Hmm.
I will be watching The Fablemans, which I rented on 4K from GameFly. Shout out to GameFly.
Yes. Can we get a GameFly sponsor? I'll tag them in this video. One of the last people you can rent 4Ks from, and they're still doing it, and they're still around. A lot of people probably don't think they are, but yeah, they do 4K movie rentals and
Yeah,
still
it's
games as
quite.
well.
I'm quite excited. I'm doing a free trial right now, so keep you posted on how this goes and how many other movies I can watch. I'm looking to
Hmm.
watch The Whale, John Wick Chapter 4, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish,
Hmm.
whatever I can get my
Hmm.
hands on. But as far as what I might
Hmm.
watch this week, definitely The Fablemans. I would like to watch Missing, which
Hmm.
is now on Netflix. The
Oh, is that
yeah,
the sequel to Searching? Kind of the same
yeah, I
universe, not
missed
sequel,
it in
but
theaters last year, so I really want to check that out. And then
yeah,
one
same.
movie that has been hyped up not only by Lucas but now a coworker of mine, shout out to Thal if you're listening, is Mishima, the A Life in Four Chapters film, which
Yes. So Survive Still 5 is one of my top 10 movies of all time. Mishima is my number one, very easily clears as my
that
favorite film of
is
all time.
definitely the words I need to hear to motivate me to watch something. So I think
Yeah.
Lucas and I are due for a
Yeah.
movie night uh, with that film very soon.
Yes, yeah. This week I definitely have availability too, so we're definitely gonna watch that. And that might be probably will be our watch with us. I've seen that movie 4 times or 5 times, a lot. Um, it'll be awesome to talk about whenever we do another
Yes, and
episode if we
we'll
watch it.
try to get
But
an
yeah,
episode out
definitely.
next week. I will be going on vacation in New York,
Mhm.
but
And I will be going on vacation to
oh,
the
where
East
are you
Coast as
going?
well. Yeah, I'm going to
Oh, that's right.
Universal Studios and Disney World
When are you leaving?
4th through the 13th.
When are you leaving? Okay,
The 4th.
so Lucas is going on vacation right when I'm getting back from vacation, so I'm leaving on the 31st. So we might be able to squeeze an
Oh
episode
yeah,
in around Memorial Day. If not, maybe we'll
Yeah,
do
yeah,
we'll pull a podcast from overseas, well, on the east while you're we'll
yeah.
figure something out. All right,
We'll
well, I'm
get
starting to
some.
get nervous. I'm at 4%, so we should probably wrap this up today.
Yeah, nice short episode. But yeah, definitely. Check out those movies if you haven't, and watch with us if you can. Let us know if there's any movies you recommend, want us to talk about. Any comments on what we talked about today is loved and encouraged in the comments down below or on
Yes,
social
and
media for
we didn't
us.
make time for it today, but please let us know your thoughts on the new Max, aka HBO, and
Yes,
as well as what your thoughts are on the Netflix password crackdown going on. Lucas and I definitely have some thoughts we can
yes,
share on that, but some we can go into more detail next time.
hmm
A lot of thoughts on
definitely.
that one. Well, 3%. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up for us. It's been a lot of fun today,
Sounds good.
guys. So thank you again for watching Mile a Minute.
Movie talk.